Hey there, folks. Chris McLean here, back with yet another episode. And in the studio today, I've got Timipre from Xerses. And they're a brand building agency that builds brands for influencers and e-commerce brands. Timipre, thanks so much for joining us. I know it's about 1 a.m. your time over in the UK, so I appreciate you staying up and swinging by.
No worries, Chris. Pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Sorry, your pleasure.
My pleasure.
So take us through Xerxes. Very cool name. Sounds very powerful, obviously. So take us through the creation of the agency.
Yeah, perfect. So essentially, I got into e-commerce around about 3 years ago, and started off by just doing dropshipping stores, doing dropshipping stores, and I was learning like how to run Facebook ads, and we were getting pretty decent at it. And then I managed to secure a contract with an e-commerce company called Atlantis Rugs at the time. And they wanted me to essentially build out the whole brand for them. And I was in the process of doing that. And then COVID hit. So they didn't really have the budget after that to go through with it. And in that period of time, I actually had a few friends who were working with clients in China who were working with Amazon brands specifically. And they ran an Amazon agency. But what the Chinese clients wanted, a lot of them, is they wanted a Shopify store. So they wanted to move over from Amazon to Shopify. So where I essentially came in is I was helping them move over from Amazon to Shopify and creating an actual brand for them. And these were quite big companies. And what I noticed is we started to get success with some of these companies. So I realized that if we were getting success with somebody who was faceless and just had the capital to put it up and say, hey, I want to create a brand, and we were able to get results for them. Imagine if you were able to do that for somebody who had a large following. If you have 1 million followers and you send just 10% of that traffic to a website, you have 100,000 people, and you've just seasoned 100,000 people on a pixel, and you're able to retarget those people. So I said, okay, that's where I got the vision, and I was like, yeah, I want to start this company called Xerxes, and it's going to be mainly for high profile people and people of a certain status, and it was to really just help them start brands, build brands, and build merch brands. So yeah, that's basically how we got started.
Yeah, awesome, man. Yeah, it seems it's fairly common thread. People sort of run their own e-com shops, whether it's sort of Amazon FBA or Shopify, and then start to run their own ads. And I've had a few people on the show actually coming with a similar journey where they've sort of done it for themselves, sort of had that real tactile understanding of how different sort of e-com platforms work, because they've literally done it themselves and then had to go out, figure out how to get traffic to the shops, which sounds like it's similar to what you went through, and you've been able to then lift up sort of that expertise and drop it into an agency to help others do the same. Really interesting positioning as well that you sort of got after that sort of influencer market. And yeah, those numbers as you're talking about, I guess it becomes quite significant, right? When you've got millions of followers and you can drop a few over those into a merch sort of shop. Is that the sort of product that they're building? They're building product off of just a brand name on a t-shirt, on hoodies, on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so like one thing I noticed is e-commerce, it's a lot harder than what it was a few years ago. Like before, you could just put up any old store and you could run some Facebook ads and get some sales. But now people want to feel as if they're a part of a community.
Right.
And with that community with the influencers comes already a ready-made community. You have people that already know who the person is. They're already comfortable. So if you're able to, create that community feeling while selling to them, people will buy into a project. People love buying into projects. So that's essentially what the ethos of the whole method is. And yeah, like a lot of the influencers that we're working with and some that we're speaking to, it's really just merch, but some do actually want to build out real brands, and they reference like someone like Kylie or Rihanna or Jessica Alba with the Honest Company, stuff like that. They want to build like an actual brand that's not just attached to their name, while some just want merch and they just want to drive their traffic to selling their merch.
Yeah. So how do you go about? So you're about that brand piece, and I think that was really interesting. That piece, you talked about that kind of Amazon FBA style, right? It's literally just faceless people. It's an interesting ecosystem because you don't actually have to have really a brand, the typical sense of lifestyle of that sort of brand component, particularly in that Amazon shop. If you've got a good product and it's keyworded right, you're going to sell product, and that's you don't necessarily need that strong brand. So how is that shifting? I'm interested to hear more about how you were able to take that sort of a company, essentially a sales company, and then convert that into a brand over onto the Shopify platform, which again is more like a traditional website where it's more lifestyle driven, it's more brand driven. What was that process? Was it literally coming up with the logo and the graphics and all of that component, or did some of that already exist?
So in terms of like, it was literally just the logo. We created essentially everything. We created the ads, we created the website, we created the copy, pretty much every process of building the brand. And that's what helped with what we're doing now. So it's like, because we were able to build the brand from scratch, we saw the process and we saw the correct way to do it. We made a lot of mistakes in the process. We saw things that you shouldn't do, trial and error. So with learning what you should and shouldn't do, I was like, damn, like, I was looking through a lot of, because you see influencers all the time on the explore page, and you look through, and most of them, now everybody wants to start a brand now. Absolutely everyone. When you look through, you see their brand, you click on their website, the website's not optimized properly. They don't have the correct content, or they don't even have a Facebook pixel. They're not utilizing. Some of them get millions of searches a month on Google, no branded ads. No, so it's like you start to identify those holes, and you're like, okay, I can apply the skills that I've learned from this situation and work with you. And then, that's but yeah, that's essentially how we did it, working with the Chinese companies. It was just essentially building absolutely everything with the brand. And it was difficult at times. I'm not going to make it sound like it was easy. Like, we made a few mistakes along the way, but overall we were successful. And that's what led to building out Xerses.
So what were some of those pitfalls? What were some of the mistakes that you now see as pitfalls, and the things that you avoid doing now? Because it's always an interesting learning to sort of look back and strip out, here's the stuff to avoid if you're going to do this. Here's the top few things that sort of came up that you definitely want to avoid in building that brand.
When starting an e-commerce brand, I would honestly say don't focus on the profit for the first 3 months. Even though e-commerce can be very profitable, which is great, I would say, like, don't focus on it solely, because what you will do is you're going to expect too much of a return too early, and then you're going to be making rash decisions. You're going to be, running ads in a way where you're expecting too much return and you're not actually allowing the process to flow. Or, one of the common mistakes we made at the beginning was ads. We were spending way too much. We weren't getting enough return on it, and we weren't actually creating a message behind it. And once we did start creating a message and starting getting people feeling like they're a part of something, that's when the sales started breaking in.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, good sort of key insights for people that are so that ability to delay gratification a bit, right? To sort of have that longer term game. A lot of people go out wanting money today, but sort of chasing. You've got tomorrow. Chasing, if you can set up to sort of chase that longer term strategy, that tomorrow money. Generally, that leads to that having more sustainability in the business, right? When you sort of shift that focus to what's my 3 month, 6 month, 12 month kind of plan, and that, I imagine that comes back into how you run ads. And you talk about sort of seasoning pixels, right? You've sort of got to season ads and season the audience, and sort of let things go a little bit to sort of accrue, rather than go, well, it hasn't worked this week, so let's change strategy. I haven't made enough sales this month, so let's change everything before it sort of has time. So in terms of if I'm an influencer, which I'm not, but say I've got a few million followers, which also I don't have, but let's assume when you're creating that brand for, you sort of talked about those two different versions, the sort of Kylie Jenner version where you create a brand that's not just your name. But for me, if I want to create a brand around myself and it's more just your typical sort of merch sort of stuff, how do you go about building out those brands? Is it taking the personal name? Is it taking something like a catchphrase or something? If I'm a TikTok in a catchphrase or a slogan or something, where do you sort of lean into to get the most out of that brand?
So in terms of like, if you're building out merch, exactly what you just touched on, it's taking slogans, what their fans relate with. So for example, we actually working with a TikTok influencer, and he came to us and his fans were literally asking him, because he says a specific slogan on all of his videos. So fans were like, we want shirts of these slogans. So like, you know, the fans had already done the work for him, because there was already demand and there was already hype for it. So all we had to do is we just had to create different designs, different ways we weren't just gonna sell one, we were gonna find different ways where we could incorporate that slogan with different designs, so that there's different variations that touch on still different topics to market it to different people within his audience. So yeah, I mean, if you're an influencer, celebrity, or musician or whatever, what we genuinely look at, it's like we go through like a very vigorous process. So we go through your comments, we go through your lives, we look at the way you interact with your fans, we look at the rapport that you've built with people, and we build the merch based off of things that you've said, things that have resonated, things that you yourself might not have noticed. We really do a vigorous search into who we're working with, so that we're able to create the best content for them, the best product for them, because at the end of the day, it's still a great product that's going to sell to people. You're not just creating it so that it just sells. It's still about building that community. It's still about building a great product that people resonate to, that people feel like they're a part of, that makes people want to you know, purchase and buy into who you are as a person, or buy into your idea. So yeah, we look into different slogans, we look into different names that in some cases they've trademarked it, so it's a trademark name, and we kind of build like a mini brand. It's still merch, but we build like a mini brand out of the trademarked name, and we create different variations of it.
Yeah, cool. It's kind of crazy to think that just something random that I come up with and say regularly on a TikTok video or an Instagram account can become something that I can sell, right? This is the sort of the world that we live in now.
Exactly. It's crazy.
You know, just a quote on a t-shirt is actually a business proposition now. I mean, it's very cool when that you can actually monetize your knowledge, right? Your identity, what you do, what you say. Is there a limit? Is there sort of an upper or lower limit on kind of how much an influencer you're working? I know we've now got large influencers, micro influencers, like there's something below a micro influencer now. We've got sort of all these different stages. Is it 100,000? Is it 1 million? Where do you sort of come in as a?
We don't actually look at the number. We look at the engagement. So it's not really about the number of followers you have. We just see how engaged your fan base are. So you could have 50,000 followers and you could have a really engaged fan base at 50,000. What we're looking for is we're just looking for somebody that has a good core group of people, a nice community that can drive a lot of traffic to the website. Because another thing as well is being an influencer isn't the be all or end all of creating an e-commerce brand. It's just the start, because all you need, like I said, is you just need a few thousand people to be sent to the site. And you already know about how accurate Facebook can be with, I know everybody's going crazy with this iOS 14 update, but I'm sure they'll figure it out. But
yeah,
you know, you already know how precise you can get with the lookalike audiences, with retargeting ads and stuff like that. So all you need to do is just bring all the moving pieces and put them together. Like a lot of influencers just throw up any old store and just expect it to sell, and it doesn't. That's just not the case. Like a lot of the ones we've spoken to, they thought that they could just do it themselves, throw up the site, and people didn't buy it because it didn't have that that prestigious feeling to it, you know?
Right.
So people didn't really feel like they had to buy something. They just felt like, oh, this is a quick money grab. But you know, the images have to be of a certain standard. The website has to be of a certain standard. The branding, the logo, the packaging. You know, you still have to care about the end consumer at the end of the day, and that's where we come in. So when we come in and we plug those holes, it's simple to work with anyone really, but you have to at least have an engaged audience. Otherwise, you know, there's no point.
Yeah. So are you getting right down to material quality and that sort of thing? If I'm doing hoodies, they said maybe if I start up a shop and I just get some kind of shitty off the shelf, super cheap hoodie and put my face on it or whatever, my logo or my slogan, it's the quality of the thing isn't there's a mismatch, right? There's a dissonance between me presenting as this luxury person and then you got this kind of crappy half cotton kind of shitty product. Do you get into that level of, I guess that is the brand as well, right? We
redesign absolutely everything. And that was the beauty of us actually getting that start, because we made a lot of connections in China in that time. So we got connected to a lot of manufacturers, high quality manufacturers of different every kind of product you can think of, to be honest. So we've had that. We've had one of the clients we worked with, they were literally selling stuff off of Printful, and we moved it completely off of there. We got our designers to create something completely new for them and then source them a high quality vendor. And now, you know, it's a high quality product. But what we're actually looking to do in truth is to really take it to the next level. We're actually looking at owning a warehouse in China so that we can actually start creating and manufacturing the product ourselves, so that we're able to make money at every stage of the funnel. Because, you know, you could get paid for being a manufacturer, you could get paid for the design, which we're already being paid for and stuff like that. So if we can create a funnel where we're getting paid at absolutely every single stage, that is, that's where we're looking to expand to, you know. We're expanding into the manufacturing side of things, and we're also expanding more into software.
Yeah, well, I guess that's going to give your customers that quality assurance as well, right? If you're managing the manufacturing, you can literally say, like, here's the quality. They're going to give you get that quality touch all the way through. And I guess particularly important when you are talking with big influential brands who, I guess, is there a particular type of influencer or type of brand that you work with, or is this everything from comedians through to kind of luxury marketers?
No, it's everyone. We as long as you have a dedicated audience, we work with anyone. We don't have we've not niched down into a specific type of influencer. We work with just, you know, anyone that's of a high profile that has that authority online.
Yeah, it's super interesting space, and so it's fascinating that you can actually monetize and commercialize yourself, right? Yourself and your personal identity to this sort of degree, and this is something that literally didn't exist even 10 years ago, but 20, 30, 40 years ago, the opportunity really wasn't there unless you were a higher level celebrity, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of higher level celebrity aspect is kind of now coming down to almost the kind of the everyman, the every person, right? Where as long as I've got that engagement, I'm building that community, I've got something important to say or something interesting and entertaining to say, that there's the potential to monetize it through this sort of commercial aspect of a brand. This is probably going to be one of these. It depends. The answer is probably it depends. But in terms of merch, what is the go-to thing? Is it hoodies? Is it hats? If you had to pick an item that sells the best across different people, where's the desire for t-shirts, hoodies, hats? What's the thing?
T-shirts and hoodies always sell better than everything else.
Okay.
T-shirts and hoodies. It's just easy because you just put the slogan on it with a nice design and people just gravitate towards T-shirts and hoodies. I mean, it's not really a surprise because every day as people, like, you know, we wear t-shirts or we wear hoodies, so people just go with that. I think it's just the safest option.
And then that's sort of that one category, that merch category. You mentioned that sort of second version, which is more of that celebrity type, where maybe it's a fragrance or a product line, or more of something distinct that rather. What would you classify merch? Merch is kind of gear, right? T-shirts, hoodies, wristbands, stuff I can wear. Is that kind of the classification of?
Yeah, merch is, you know, anything that I would associate merch as anything that's like a slogan, something like, you know, you can just wear that has your phrases on it. But what I would associate with a brand is, you know, you could still have like a clothing brand that's different, but it's like an actual brand, and you know, you're doing like official shoots and ads for it and stuff like that. It's like it's a completely different, you know, like your name is not really attached to it. You know, it's more of like a, you know, when you look at like a Fashion Nova or something, you know, like that's like an actual brand in itself. But
so it's less about you as the individual and more it's a business and a standalone entity, a standalone brand. And again, I guess that could be anything, right? It could be anything from a fragrance, as you said, could be a merch brand. It could be the same sort of thing, t-shirts, hoodies, but it's a distinct brand rather than my face on a t-shirt. It's a brand that I've created.
Yeah.
And where do you see that? Here's going to the future, or not even the future, the near future. So right now, NFTs are super hot. Are you seeing that coming into your space, where instead of buying a hoodie, a t-shirt, I'm buying a digital hoodie or a digital piece of merch? Is that something that you're starting to look at all?
100%. As soon as we're actually working on the NFT project, but I'm keeping my lips sealed on that one. But no, but in terms of NFTs, I think blockchain as a whole is just the future. I think I personally believe that NFTs are going to favor musicians a lot. We're going to see, like, within the next 4 to 5 years, I think musicians being able to do concerts as tickets sold as NFTs. I think we're going to see virtual concerts become a thing, and that is going to merge with NFTs. Because of like the whole pandemic and thing, I think people are going to see that there's a lot of potential in doing virtual events, and then obviously an NFT being a non-fungible token, it's literally something that you're buying virtually. You don't get to physically touch it. So I think that NFTs and VR are the future within the next 5 to 10 years. And in terms of musicians, I think across any industry, you're going to see NFTs really take over. And it's kind of similar to when you look at like the food industry, like a restaurant could sell an NFT, right? And you could buy this special golden ticket for like $1,000, like $1,000 NFT, and you could repeatedly get in for free and eat for free at that restaurant. And then when you were tired, you could just sell it to someone else, and that restaurant will continue to make royalties on that single NFT forever. And I think it's going to work like that across every single industry. I think NFTs are going to be a necessity in about 5 to 10 years, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's definitely a super interesting space, or even sort of looking at it in terms of sort of podcasting, right? I think that's another really interesting sort of talk about concerts for musicians, but even for presentations and for virtual communities of I could do the podcast, and I could have it in Rome or in Hawaii. I could have a different setting and a different background based on the topic that we're covering. And then as people at that event are taking photos or taking snippets of recordings, all of that asset becomes NFTs. People could sign up to programs and that sort of thing through there again, which gives you access to higher levels or specific training sessions. Virtual is super, super interesting space. So very cool that you're starting to look at that as well, because I think that as you're saying, it's going to start getting more and more embedded in popular culture, and the kind of stuff that you're doing is a really nice translation to that, where you're designing assets, right? If I can buy my slogan on a t-shirt in the physical world, I can buy that same slogan on a digital t-shirt in a virtual reality. So when I go to the Timipre event and I've got my Timipre t-shirt on and I'm there in the audience in virtual reality, right? All of those little assets you can buy the same. It probably sounds crazy to a lot of people that don't really operate in that space, but people will start to live more and more in virtual reality, as crazy as it sounds. They'll dress themselves in virtual gear, right? I want to have the hat and I want to have the latest pair of sunglasses or virtual hoodie that I can put on when I'm going to a concert. So that stuff has tangible value. It's super, super interesting, that shift.
No, definitely. It's like I don't know if you've heard of Decentraland.
No.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's crazy. Like when you check it out, you're not gonna believe it. It's a game. It's a virtual game where you can literally buy land. Like you can buy land in the game, and they're sold as NFTs. So you could go on OpenSea right now and buy virtual land, and the lowest price is like $5,000 right now. And people are literally building things in Decentraland as we speak, creating all these crazy things, creating billboards. And where I see the future of that being is, let's say, for example, Decentraland managed to bag Elon Musk to do a live Tesla talk, but in Decentraland, in virtual reality. And 1 million people go into his live Decentraland event, and as they come out, you see a billboard from like Domino's. That's the future. That's where NFTs fit in to that future.
It's literally taking the real world where we have real banners and billboards in real life, but having the digital version in a virtual reality where I own advertising space, I own property. I could own Mount Everest, right? I could own the virtual version of Mount Everest in Decentraland, and every time anyone visits, they pay an access fee. They pay me a bit of Ethereum to go in, but if millions of people visit Mount Everest and take photos and have tours, all getting bits of money off of that. It's and anytime somebody buys something and then resells it for higher value as the value of things increases, I'm making a clip off it, and they make money off it. And I mean, it's a whole new way to think about commercializing what you're doing. So very, very cool that you're looking into that, and I'll definitely check out Decentraland. But there's a few of those sort of places being built up now, projects around this. It's as anything, it's kind of getting into the one that becomes the one, right?
Exactly. I think right now in the whole crypto blockchain space, we might not have seen the end game yet. I think Ethereum is going to be one of the end game players, to be honest. But in terms of everyone else, we might not have seen the end game yet, because never underestimate the people who are sitting back watching the plays. Because there's obviously, there's always the first movers who some will survive until the end. So like you have like a Facebook who were the pioneers of this social media stuff, and they came through and trailblazed it for everyone else. But then you also have people that sat back and watched it, and Snapchat came along, and then Instagram came along, So I feel like others will come along into the blockchain space, and they will iterate on what has already been done, and they'll improve it, and they'll find ways to improve it.
I mean, that's bang. I mean, Google wasn't the first search engine, right?
Exactly.
There was 20, 30 search engines before Google came along, and then they sat back and, all right, let's take the best of everything and become the one. So it's very, very early in that space, but it's certainly fun to get in and start to understand this stuff, because as you're saying, it's definitely going to be some way or another. There's something is going to be happening in that space.
Honestly, learning about blockchain, DeFi, crypto now is like learning HTML in the 90s. Like it's something you're going to want to do.
Yeah. Super interesting space, man. And imagine for you and your business and that sort of next level of it. That's where influential people are going to start to move into those spaces, and it'll be to have events, to have access. When you see like Gary V is a guy that's very much pushing into this sort of NFT and crypto space at the moment. I mean, actually, a friend of mine, co-host on my other Podcast actually bought one of his NFTs. One of his, he's done a bunch of drawings.
Yeah, the V.
Chuck's done it. He's done a bunch of drawings, and she picked one of those up. So, I mean, it's artists as well, right? Selling art digitally.
No, I think one fascinating thing, real quick, about Gary Vee's project is I liked what he said about his vision for it. So right now, the characters that he drew, they might be meaningless now, but he said he has 40 years to make them relevant. I saw a video of him saying he had 40 years to make it relevant. So that's partnerships with Disney, for example, like one of his characters showing up in a movie, and that's where the true value is. Because, you know, if you buy one of these characters for, let's say, $2,000, for example, and your character that you've bought shows up in a Disney film, all of a sudden it flies up. So it's like, you know, I like his overall vision, and he definitely sees where it's going. That's one thing to say. Like he definitely sees where it's going.
No, I mean, again, to bring it into the real world for people, it's the same as owning like an original Mickey Mouse cell, right? One of the like Steamboat Mickey or Steamboat Willie original Mickey Mouse cartoon. To own a literal physical cell from that, you know, 50 years later, it's worth millions of dollars, right? Or to own an original Simpsons drawing or a Simpsons cell from that stuff like that. That's it's that, but digital, and that's same sort of stuff. And that's why art and that kind of thing builds value over time. But yeah, it's really interesting. You can do stuff now and build the value in it by really interesting. The guy's got long-term vision, which for all this stuff is really important to understand what's happening now, but also have that kind of foresight to see where things are going.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
Very cool stuff, man. Thank you so much. I'm glad we sort of went off kilter a little bit and got into crypto and NFTs, but it's super relevant. It's really the next evolution of what you're doing and how you're helping people to monetize and commercialize who they are, what they do, what they're out there doing in the world. So I think it's really, really, really important stuff. People want to find more connected with you, apart from jumping into virtual reality, where can they come and find you and find out more about you?
You can find me on the best place is usually Instagram, to be honest. At Timipre Max is my, so just add MAX, the IG at the bottom of the screen there. So Timipre Max on IG. Xerses.com, and you can send over an email, and I'm happy to speak to anyone.
Awesome, man. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you hanging out with us so late on a Thursday night for you, or actually early Friday morning.
No, I appreciate it, and this was a great chat, and it was nice sharing this time with you.
Yeah, you too, man. Thank you. Yeah, really insightful stuff. Always cool to sort of go into the future a little bit and sort of see what the next thing that's coming is. And yeah, I think you're bang on. I think it sounds like you're really well positioned to take advantage of it for yourself, but also help a whole lot of people take advantage of the what's happening now and how to capitalize that going forward. So very, very cool. So I hope you got a bunch of insights, and I'm sure you'll all be out there Googling NFTs and all that kind of stuff now. Go investigate. It's a very, very cool space. Thanks so much for taking the time, Timipre.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everyone, for hanging out. See you on the next one. Cheers.